Greg Inglis, superstar, scores for Melbourne. There's the siren, it's over. Melbourne have won their second grand final. Billy Slater, the Melbourne genius. They're jumping for joy, Melbourne.
Over the last few weeks, it's come to light that the Storm has engaged in a long-term system of operating what might conveniently be called two sets of books. The penalty will be the stripping of 3 minor premierships and 2 premierships, the return of $1.1 million in prize money, a fine of $500,000. In the 2010 season, all competition points earned thus far will be taken away, and the team shall not accrue any further points in the 2010 season.
Rugby league and all Australian sport has been rocked tonight by the dramatic decision of the NRL to strip the Melbourne Storm of 2 of its premiership titles.
And the Melbourne Storm's dynasty has turned to nothing but dust.
And dumped all their Storm memorabilia in garbage bags at their front doors.
We have been gutted with what has transpired in recent days. Our greatest accomplishments and what we cherish most have been taken away from us by the harshest of penalties. This club is a great club, it's a strong club, it's a very proud club. We will stand up for ourselves and we will fight our way back from here. That fight starts today.
But I want to kick off the program with what could only be described as a sensational bit of tape. Back in 2007 on the Sunday Footy Show, we held a forum in this very studio where one of our guests was the man now acknowledged as the architect of the Melbourne Storm salary cap scandal. Take a look and a listen to this, Brian Waldron.
The two things that kill footy clubs are ego and emotion. The greatest thing our game's got is exactly what David said, that when we line up at the start of the year, all things being equal, every club has an opportunity of winning a premiership. Clubs have gone through, I think this year's the first time, and it may well be Melbourne, that the sides that have played off in the grand final have actually followed up and made the finals the year after, the first time for about 4 years. Generally speaking, the attrition rate of success and failure is very short. And the beauty of our game with the salary cap that exists, it enables clubs to do exactly what the Dragons have done this year. They've stopped 8-9 games into the year and said, we need to rebuild. It's allowed Penrith to do exactly the same. People get emotionally attached to players, we understand that, but at the core of it is managing your roster and having success, and our salary cap enables people to do that, and we shouldn't be looking at excuses of people emotionally letting players go because it's not right.
What about that? That's extraordinary. As I say, that was less than 3 years ago in this very studio. David, you attended that forum. Right from the top, I do have to ask you how on earth you found out about this, and we need to know a timeline of the events, of this whole drama unfolding.
I guess it started with the audit process last year. Ian Schubert and his team had some suspicions. They began to ask some questions. They obviously got lied to a lot. Then some informants came forward and they gathered information from there. Over the last couple of weeks, more information came. Early last week, we sought legal advice. QC's advice. In his words, we had a strong inferential case, strong circumstantial evidence, but we needed to call for information. We wrote a letter on Wednesday, was settled by the lawyers. It asked the Melbourne Storm to come up on Thursday. They came up, and at lunchtime, you know, to their credit, they made a lot of admissions, and the suspicions became proof. We then imposed the penalty on Thursday afternoon.
Now, originally the plan was that the first grade squad would not be training. They were going to have the Toyota Cup squad just doing a bit of a run around. When first grade heard about this, they said, oh, no, we want to be the first to train at the ground and we'll put on a show for the fans. This was before the mine, the landmine hit here. Let's hear from Craig Bellamy, a very strong Craig Bellamy at yesterday's fan day.
We have been gutted with what has transpired in recent days. Our greatest accomplishments and what we cherish most have been taken away from us by the harshest of penalties. The two things that they can never take away is our dignity and our integrity. We know we will be investigated. We welcome that. I love this club. I love these players. These players love our club. This club is a great club. It's a strong club. It's a very proud club. It also has been a successful club. We, as people and as a rugby league club, have a huge role to play in Victoria. We will stand up for ourselves and we will fight our way back from here. That fight starts today.
Phil Gould, we all know the most vocal opponent of the salary cap, I think, and the most listened to rugby league analyst when it comes to things like this. Is it possible, Gus, for you to, now that we've had a couple of days to digest all that has unfolded and the punishment that's taken place and what we're confronted with now with the Melbourne Storm, what's your biggest beef?
That it could have been avoided. The whole sort of mess could have been avoided. The damage to the game, the damage to the Melbourne Storm, the damage to people's reputations, the punishment to innocent people could have all been avoided with better forethinking, with a salary system that was more in keeping with the demands of the modern game. That I'm very concerned about the timeline of this, that it's taken 5 years for this to come under the attention of the NRL, and the timeline of recent weeks in how these matters were disclosed. And that from the very first inkling, and everyone in rugby league, no one's a fool, from the very first inkling that the Storm were going to be stretched on salary cap because of all these great young players that were now coming to be representative class people and winning premierships and winning World Cups, and their profile in the game was so huge, and the pressure the game was under from other codes and from England, you know, for our talent levels. There was no doubt that this Melbourne Storm side was going to run into salary cap trouble. And the fact that the Melbourne Storm side is owned by News Limited, who owns the game, they had to be protected from all this and any association with all this. And the NRL had a responsibility to make sure that happens. And I think the NRL has been negligent in this, in allowing this to happen and get to the way it is. It's one thing to wave your flag and say, we've caught the cheat. See, if you cheat, you're going to get caught. It's another thing to prevent the damage before it happens. And there were enough signs over the last couple of years that this Melbourne side was going to be in trouble, and this Melbourne side being owned by News Limited was going to be very damaged to their reputation if ever it came out. Now, the Holocaust, or the mess that we've had here this week, was totally avoidable had there been better thinking 2 years, 3 years ago when this started to boil.
Well, look, we're going to have further cross-examination. I will give you right there, because the word negligence been used.
Yeah, just in answer to that. Of course, ideally, we would have found out earlier, but one of the methods that the Melbourne Storm used is to back-end contracts. So even on the legal payments we knew about, they had trouble coming up next year. They're going to be over. That snowballed legally and illegally. Their payments blew out. And the other thing, I guess, is that it wasn't just our audit team that didn't get this. News Limited had their own auditors. They also had external auditors. So there were big steps taken to deceive everyone. You know, files held at people's homes, that kind of thing, is pretty hard to detect. And I've been saying all week, where detection's difficult, the risks have to be high.
I understand that. But given the profile of this club and given what they were trying to do, the charter they were given to sell rugby league down in Melbourne, and given that it was owned by News Limited, the owners of the game, surely there had to come a time where your suspicions, or you, through your experience, knowing that they're going to be under pressure, said to News Limited, you keep a very close eye on this and help them through this to protect them from what's just gone down. And there were plenty of signs. Because back in 2008, when Cameron Smith signed a deal with Foxtel, which was also owned by News Limited, perception's reality. It's one thing it could have been as innocent, and I'm glad for him to have a media contract. He's got a profile where he deserves one. But it came at a time where that club was under pressure to retain him because he was getting big offers from elsewhere. Surely you say to News Limited, look, I know you're trying to help, I know, but this isn't going to look good down the track.
We were always looking for proof, Phil, and we've only had the proof about the guaranteeing of that deal arrive on Friday night.
But we've
gone to lawyers, and they've said to us, you need proof to act. And that took some time.
Last year, when Brett Finch left the Parramatta Eels and became available, there was only one club in the league who could fit him in the salary cap. It was the Melbourne Storm. Now you're giggling now. And I giggled at the time. Well, and then, knowing he was going to be there for 1 year, halfway through the year, they said, I like it down here, I'll stay again for another year. Well, we all giggled louder. Well, surely you go to them and say, you're getting on dangerous territory here.